to see the Super Heavy perform its second flight and see all of the work from our thousands of engineers and technicians in action today. Now, while this reuse milestone is incredibly important for Starship's development, Super Heavy boosters are not the only vehicles that we reuse here at SpaceX. We're big on reuse, and our Dragon fleet is another example of that reuse. And we actually control those Dragon missions from right here in Hawthorne in the mission control room that we talked about a little bit earlier. For Dragon and our human spaceflight program, this month also marks a big milestone for SpaceX, our 5-year anniversary of human spaceflight. Now, NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley got us started back on Demo 2, which was notable for being the first time since the retirement of the shuttle program in 2011 that people launched to orbit from U.S. soil. Now, in those 5 years, we have launched 17 human spaceflight missions, 11 for NASA, and 6 commercial missions, including Polaris Dawn, with our first commercial spacewalk in history, and From 2 earlier this year, which became the first human spaceflight mission ever to explore Earth's polar regions. We've flown a total of 66 crew in those 5 years, and we are expecting that number to grow significantly in the coming years. Now, most recently on our From 2 mission, the crew offered unique glimpses into the orbital spaceflight experience. And this was honestly just so cool to see. Thank you to our Starlink teams for making everything with the From 2 crew shared possible. This honestly made me feel like I was right there with them in Dragon. They were living, they were working, they were relaxing, they were doing their experiments while also having fun. Basically, just being people and inviting us along for the ride. And that was really meaningful. Being invited up there really showed how these are just the early days on the road to making life multiplanetary. And the vehicle that's going to make all of that happen is Starship. And Dan and Jesse, I don't know about you, but that is definitely a future I have wanted since I was a little kid, and I cannot wait to see us make it a reality.
Yeah, right there with you, Chris.
It was awesome.
The fact that we're getting close to that being reality, that the vehicle that's going to go is sitting on the pad right there, like that's endlessly exciting. All of that's going to include sending humans, all of the infrastructure for a permanent presence on Mars, and we're looking ahead to sending the very first Starships to Mars as early as next year.
Yeah, this will help prove that we can actually get to Mars with a focus on learning as much as possible while demonstrating what will be needed for Mars transit and landing. But
Welcome to the
before
chat.
we make life multiplanetary, we
Welcome
have
in,
to build
everybody.
the starships that will make this all possible.
That's right, and that's happening right here, Starbase, Texas, the gateway to Mars. This is where we're soon going to be launching up to 25 Starship launches per year from here at Starbase. And the place is changing every single day. We've grown quite a bit just in the last couple of years. There's a couple hundred employees, their families living amongst actual rockets. We're in the process of expanding production and integration. We've got a target of 1,000 Starships a year we're going to try to hit. And
They're going to try to launch this, then land it out in the water. This time, they're going to try to not bring it down straight. They're going to try to bring it down
that's just going to help us scale more quickly,
flatter. That way, to slow it down faster.
Possible for all the people that are building the future of humanity's place in space. Starbase, pretty easily one of the most inspiring, exciting, unique places to live and work on the planet. As usual, shameless plug, we're always hiring. Come help us build the gateway to Mars. Visit spacex.com/careers. You can see all of our openings.
And this is my first time in Starbase, and Dan, the Star Factory is a manufacturing engineer's dream. To be able to build a factory like this at such a large scale with such a large scale vehicle is so wild to me. And though I'm just visiting, Chris is hanging out right where I call home base. So let's check back in with Chris in Hawthorne.
Thanks, Jesse. Yeah, everything here in Hawthorne is looking good. The crowd is gathered, really excited to watch the hard work of all of their colleagues come to fruition here for Starship on its 9th flight test. Not tracking any issues. We are excited to watch Starship do its thing today, make it halfway around the world, and test a lot of those critical in-space maneuvers and operations that will be vital for the program's continued operation. So Dan and Jesse, we can't wait for liftoff. Let's have a good flight today.
Thanks, Chris. Now, if you're just now joining us, where have you been? But we're glad that you're joining us now. We are at T-minus just under 6 minutes until liftoff of the 9th Starship test flight. So far, the range is looking good. All the airspace and trajectory area that we are going to be launching through is looking good for our test flight today. Weather has been great. It was a little rainy and windy this morning, but it cleared up. It looks beautiful here in Starbase, and propellant loading continues on both stages.
All right, yeah, it is continuing. We're a little over 90% full on our booster. We are pretty much full in the main tanks on ship, filling up those header tanks. We're going to continue loading prop for about 2 more minutes. Once we're done with that, you've got just under 11 million pounds of liquid.
I'm gonna roll outside real quick, so bear with me. We're gonna leave their audio up and let me get set up outside. I got 4 minutes and 45 seconds to do this, so I'll be right back. Outside views, let's go.
We did just see they did a flap wiggle check, so the final flap check on the ship. We're doing final alignments of the guidance, navigation, and control system, our thrust vector control, essentially our steering. Checkouts of the flight safety system. So everything progressing right now. If we do need to hold, that can come at T-minus 40 seconds. That's a point built into the countdown where we can pause to wait for any final checkouts, pressurizations, anything that we need to complete. We can hold there. We will only hold there if we're tracking an issue. We're not currently tracking anything that will hold us at T-minus 40 seconds. But if you've seen a Starship launch before, they can happen. We can push through them and then launch that day still.
Exactly. But when we do pass through T-minus 40 seconds, a number of events will occur in rapid succession. The ground spin and ignition systems come up to flight pressure. Ship goes to internal power, and then after that, the quick disconnect or QD arm lockout is removed in preparation for retraction just shortly after T-minus 0. And once we pass T-minus 40 seconds, we do still have the ability to recycle the count under certain conditions back to T-minus 40 seconds, and then hold there to assess what happened and see if we can proceed again back down to T0.
Yeah, there are a couple of things, kind of gates in that timeline that if we pass through that and we hit a hold, we'd have to scrub for the day. One pretty visual one will be if the water starts flowing for that deflector system that's underneath the launch mount. That happens right at around T-minus 10 seconds. For flowing water, we can't turn it off after it starts, and if we hit a hold, we're scrubbed for the day. We would need to refill those water tanks. We would also, at that point, need to refill all of the propellant tanks, as 11 million pounds of propellant is a whole lot. We can typically do that in about 24 hours, so we can always turn around to try again tomorrow. But we are coming up on 3 minutes away from liftoff. We should be hearing that we're closed out of prop load on the ship at this point. Booster coming up shortly.
And wow, the weather just looks amazing there with Starship on the launch pad. Just about 2 minutes and 45 seconds from T0 with a lot of objectives for today. The booster, the Super Heavy booster flying today, will be flying for its second time. Last flight was on Flight 7 and just turned around in 2 flights, which is pretty incredible. I'm super excited to see that booster fly again.
All right, we did just hear we are going to hold at T-minus 40 seconds.
Of course. Hopefully
So
it's a short
we'll
hold.
pass along some more information once we hear that reason. But again, that's not the end of the day. We can hold at T-minus 40 seconds for quite a few minutes. We eventually have to start looking at our temperature of all of our propellant on board. That's usually what drives us to, if we've held too long, we have to stand down for the day. So we are expecting a hold at T-minus 40 seconds. Sounds like we're going to be doing some additional checkouts on the booster Raptor while we're at that T-minus 40 second mark. So we will expect to see the clock pause at T-minus 40. And then again, we've got a couple of minutes. They can work through the issues. If we're able to clear them, we can still launch today. If it's something that we can't, we can always stand down, turn around, recycle, fly again tomorrow.
Again, that's really important. This is what terminal count is exactly for, is to be checking the vehicle, monitoring the vehicle systems as it makes its way down to T0. And again, this gives us the ability to catch anything and be able to hold, as Dan has been saying, and recycle if we need to, or pause so that we can work through those issues and see if it's something that we need to stand down for. And as Dan mentioned, we will be holding at T-minus 40 seconds, so in about 20 seconds from now.
Yeah, so we'll hold there.
There's definitely some precedence here for this, guys. This has happened on a handful of launches. Sometimes it's, sometimes these T-minus 40 seconds holds are literally only 30 seconds long. Other times they've been 5 minutes. So don't go anywhere. It's not on Scrub for today. They have a decent launch window here. So let's just listen up here and make sure we're not missing anything. But I'll be eyes on everything, trying to make sure we're not going to miss anything.
Third time.
And you just heard our flight director for the day, Joe Sliker. He just shared that we are going to hold at this T-minus 40-second mark. Keep an eye on one of those Raptor engines on booster.
All right, so obviously this is the
if you're just now jumping in, we are holding still at T-minus 40 seconds. Watching one engine, waiting for temperatures to kind of get to a zone that we want them to on one of the engines on the booster, on the Super Heavy booster, getting ready for its second ever flight.
Okay.
We'll just continue to hold. Again, we can hang out here for several minutes. We held for a while on the first attempt last time, and then cleared it, and then we triggered a different issue on the ground side.
But again, this is exactly what it's for. This gives us the best chances at success.
And the clock is rolling.
Oh, clock's rolling. Okay, this is good. Clock is back.
T-minus 30. Let's listen in.
Oh my God, it's T-minus 30. That's like almost no time for me.
Super Heavy. Get ready to take off from Starbase.
All right, here we go, guys. I'm all eyes watching now. Because if it's T-minus 30, that means any second for me, because there's a little bit of a delay. So I'm looking for that flash. Looking for water deluge. Oh, we hit a hold. Okay. Okay. That's all right.
We did have a hold, and looks like the clock jumped back to T-minus 40 seconds.
But they again, they can hold in this position.
Out. I did not see the deflector go off.
Yep, that's good.
So hopefully we were right at around that T-minus 10-second mark.
And if we were before that T-minus 10-second mark, we do have the ability to recycle, as we mentioned earlier, back to T-minus 40 seconds.
So it looked like this time it was a ground side issue. We're taking a look at this real quick. So again, we're back at T-minus 40. We're gonna hold for a little bit.
Maybe it was the water deluge.
We are still not scrubbed for the day. Give them a couple of minutes to work through this. Again, we can hang out at T-minus 40 for several minutes. Eventually, we start looking at your bulk temperatures and all of your propellant on board the vehicle. We're not actively replenishing the propellant on board Super Heavy and Starship, and so you don't have essentially forever to hang out before things start to warm up, and you do want to make sure your temperature's in a really stable range for a healthy startup on Raptor engines. So they're going to work through this issue. We can continue to hold here for a couple of minutes. What's launch without a little extra added excitement?
Come on, baby. I'm hoping, like I said, just for personal schedules wise, I'm really hoping to see this thing launch today. So the water deluge system, if they do use it, then this could be a good and bad thing. If the water deluge system, let's listen.
Cumulatively, we've held for a little over 3 minutes between the two holds. Again, this is a ground side issue on our tower. The techs are looking through the data right now to see if it's something that we can either work through or if it would cause us to have to stand down. So we're continuing to hang out with them, holding at T-minus 40.
If you're just joining us, we did initially hold at T-minus 40 seconds. We continued the count but recycled before we got to T minus 10 seconds. And so we're back at a hold at T minus 40 seconds. Waiting for more information. The team is checking out to see if we can continue today.
Please, please, please. Please, please. So like I was saying, it could be if it was that the water deluge didn't trigger, that's a good thing and a bad thing, because good thing is because it didn't trigger, that didn't automatically cause a scrub, because if you do use it, they can't reset right away. So so if it did happen to like kind of maybe
we're continuing to hold here at T minus 40 seconds. We've been holding for just about 5 minutes now as the teams evaluate if we can continue to T0 for flight 9.
Yeah, and stage 1 doesn't even. Don't be shy. Just
All right, so it sounds like we're coming to a resolution.
good resolution or a bad resolution. Oh man. How you guys feeling out there? I've seen a lot of people thinking it's gonna be a scrub, but I don't know. I think I'm
All
feeling
right,
like they're gonna.
So we are getting to a resolution. We're gonna reset everything.
Reset today? What kind of reset? Hopefully it's like a repress for flight. Hopefully it's not like a reset for tomorrow kind of full reset everything.
All right, so we're gonna see the clock. It is now rolling.
Okay, it's rolling. Clock's moving again.
Here we go.
We saw an issue with that quick disconnect
Okay,
to the
come on.
ship. There is a chance that automation will kick us out again if we encounter the same issue. But for now, the clock is
I'm looking
rolling.
to see if we get water
See
deluge.
if we
Water
pass
deluge
around
is
that T minus
going.
10
So here we go. I see engine ignition. We do have motion. It is lifted off. Here we go. Flight 9. First reuse of a booster engine B14 flying for the second time in only 5 months. This is the third flight in 2025. The third test of the Starship Upper Stage version 2. There's that rumble. I can feel it in my chest. Look at that. Oh, yes. Yes. Okay. So we are looking really good. It's a beautiful day for a launch. This is going to be a fantastic view, and it's about to get loud for me, folks. Only 5 miles away, 8 kilometers, and things are shaking. This is when it gets fun. Let's hear for our tracking team out there, making good use of all of our 4K views. Looking up at those 33 Raptor engines. I see all 33 looking fantastic. It is shaking here, baby. Shake and bake. Flight number 9. Oh, and the percussive sound. Oh, I love that. I love that. Thank you. I needed this. All right, let's go. Let's listen to SpaceX here and make sure we're not missing any of the important call-outs.
Aerodynamic pressure, then only about a minute and a half until we get into hot staging.
Wow, Dan, that was incredible. We could feel the building shaking here, feel the vehicle's power. And we're just about a minute away from shutting down those engines on the booster. Again, this booster is flying for its second time today.
Still looking good.
All right, so hot staging coming up a little under a minute. We're going to see all but the 3 center engines turn off on the booster. So our version of MECO, most engines cut off. And then just a few seconds later, hoping to see 6 engines ignite on ship.
So I'm going to be
push it
ahead of
away.
the SpaceX stream as far as my audio callouts. So sorry if it's a little bit confusing, but I'm waiting to see that those engines shut down.
All right, hot staging, about 30 seconds.
Should be any second for me now. It's pretty bright. I might need to look at our own
And
cameras.
definitely keep an eye on which way the booster flips. First ever directional flip
Okay,
we're going for
hot
today
staging.
should flip straight up.
saw hot staging. Don't see any other explosions. That's looking good for a boost back burn. Come on,
See those
ship.
engines
Ship
powering
2,
down?
please do your thing.
Booster engine cut off.
Please do your thing. Ship 2, we need this.
Ship ignition. Stage separation.
Incredible flip by Super Heavy Booster, and you can see those 6 engines, those 3 engines on the ship ignited.
Wow, I can still see it really
6
good
healthy
here, guys.
Raptors running on ship, on its way to space. Peek that engine view. Booster doing the boost back. Chris, how's it looking over there in Hawthorne, man?
It is looking
Raptor chamber pressure is nominal.
It is looking absolutely incredible here in Hawthorne. As we said, 6 healthy engines on ship. We've got 13 out of 13 engines on the booster. Now down to those 3, which is what we expect in the final moments of the boost back burn. Now, as a reminder, we are not recovering the Super Heavy booster today. We are instead going to do
boost back, shut down.
And there we had a good shutdown of the boost back burn. Next up will be the jettison of that hot stage
Ship
ring.
avionics power and telemetry nominal.
Oh, I was looking at
Great
ship.
call out there
Boosters
that
way
everything
up there.
looking nominal aboard the Super Heavy vehicle, which is returning to Earth, and we're going to be doing some experiments with it, including a higher angle of attack re-entry, as well as some engine tests as it gets closer to the Gulf. We are, again, because of these tests not recovering it, we are sending it to the Gulf on purpose to do those tests. But again, you see the booster on the left-hand side of your screen. You see ship with 6 healthy engines continuing its ascent to its planned suborbital trajectory. Everything going very well so far for Starship's 9th flight. Now 4 minutes, 15 seconds in. Great views from inside of the aft engine area of ship there, looking at those 3 sea level and 3 Raptor engines on the right-hand side of your screen. The booster doing its LOX dump, that liquid oxygen dump. So because we don't need some of that liquid oxygen propellant in its tanks, we vent that propellant out to lessen the booster's mass as it comes in for its landing. Just absolutely gorgeous views watching these 2 vehicles do their respective things in the skies over Texas here today. And Dan, we're approaching the 5-minute mark into the flight. Super Heavy is descending rapidly. What can we expect here in the next few minutes as it does its atmospheric tests?
Yeah, now as we had talked about, Super Heavy might not have a very smooth ride down. We're going to be putting it through this higher angle of attack. So we're kind of pitching it up a tiny bit, increasing drag. We've done this in wind tunnels. We've done this in computer modeling. It shows that sometimes the control isn't great, but only one way to really prove it out, and that's to get real-world data. So here comes Super Heavy.
Where did it go? I lost it.
It should be igniting for its landing burn in just about 40 seconds from now.
And we are going to relight 13 engines, then bring that down to 3 engines. As we talked about earlier, we will be intentionally shutting down. We will be shutting down one of those 3 center engines intentionally to push the limits of the Super Heavy booster.
Ship Raptor chamber pressure is nominal.
And continuing to see 6 healthy engines on the ship.
Yes, ship's still looking
3
good, guys.
sea level and 3 vacuum engines still ignited as the Super Heavy booster is making its way back down to Earth.
We can see those grid fins doing some heavy work.
Booster landing startup.
Ignited for our landing burn.
That might have looked like a boomy boom, maybe. I don't think booster survived.
It may have ended with that landing burn.
Ship still, though. Ship's still chugging along,
Does look
guys.
like we lost telemetry from the booster once we started into that landing burn. Did you hear confirmation that the booster did demise?
That's why they pushed it to the limits.
So the booster's flight ending before it was able to get through landing burn, but again, we are not bringing that back. We were expecting it to make a hard splashdown in the Gulf. We were getting live data back the entire time through that high angle of attack flight, so that was something that was really vital for us to get during this reuse. First free flight of booster in the books.
Oh, just heard the
All
sonic
right,
boom.
ship has about 2 minutes left.
In
minutes
about
left. I'm
2
going back
minutes,
inside. It's
we
hot.
expect all 6 Raptor engines to shut down. That will be Seco, basically second engine or second stage engine shut off. And these are some incredible views, Dan, from the aft end of the ship, watching as the engines stay ignited with the Earth in the background.
As always, the Starship avionics team, the techs. I think we just heard the booster. But all right, we got about a minute left into this burn. All eyes definitely on ship as we get through the final stages into its ascent. We're expecting it to start to cut those engines off
Okay, here we go.
in about 45 seconds.
Getting close. Outer engines first, then the inner sea level Raptor engines. There is a little
Terminal
bit of
guidance.
a little glow on that one vacuum Raptor engine again, but maybe that's just a reflection or something.
All right, just about 30 seconds to go.
Oh, I see a little fire too in the aft section.
We're in terminal guidance.
There is a little fire.
The final stages of this ascent burn.
There we go. Vacuum shut
We
down.
did see shutdown of the Raptor engines.
And now
We do stagger these, so we do the Raptors first. Those 3 have shut down successfully. Sea level's still running.
Ship engine cut off.
Okay. Ooh. Oh yeah, that makes sense that you'd have anything hot glowing hotter when you're dumping extra oxygen. So that looks good.
Ship engine
Nominal
cut off,
insertion.
the 3 most beautiful words in the
Oh.
English language.
And great call out that we had nominal
Yes.
insertion.
Yes. Yes.
An
Let's go.
incredible flight test so far today. We
Hopefully-
reflew a super heavy booster for the very first time in 9 test flights. Ship is in its orbital trajectory. Again, it's going to remain suborbital for its mission today. But it
Ship
ignited
FPS is saved.
It ignited all 6 of its engines and made it all the way through Seco just now.
Hopefully this attitude control is intentional. Hopefully they're orienting to be able to deploy the Starlink dummy satellites. But it's hard
What
to
a
tell
moment.
right now.
Huh.
Incredible.
All right,
And
but I
we got-
mean, that's... Ooh, still lots to come for the rest of
Finally
this
made
flight. Per usual, I need to collect myself. Hey, Chris, how's it going over there in Hawthorne, man? How's everybody doing?
I think the elation and the excitement and the happiness at what we just saw achieved carried through across all of our sites. What an incredible view to see Starship back orbiting the Earth just under 11 minutes into our mission. Absolutely exciting to see all of this and super pumped, especially to see all of the team's hard work in action here today. As guaranteed, it has been an exciting evening so far for Starship's 9th test flight. We lifted off a little bit after 6:30 p.m. after a couple of holds that were triggered at the T-minus 40-second mark, but we were able to clear those, one on the Raptor, one on the tower, and we were able to lift off successfully from Starbase. 33 out of 33 Raptor engines lit on the Super Heavy, all 6 engines lit on ship, bringing it to its planned suborbital trajectory around Earth. But as Dan said, we've got a lot still coming up in our flight sequence. So coming up at about T plus 18 minutes, 26 seconds, we'll have the first deployment of simulated Starlink satellites planned from Starship. That will be followed at about T plus 37 minutes and 49
might be an
seconds by the
uncontrolled
relight
spin.
of a single Raptor sea level
we'll
engine
see.
in space. This is going to help us gather data on our ability to do a deorbit burn for future Starship missions that will go orbital. And then, of course, one of the biggest tests yet to come is the new heat shield modifications to Starship. And that'll start with re-entry into Earth's atmosphere at about the T plus 45-minute mark, which should take about 16, 18 minutes to complete. And now today's re-entry is going to test that heat shield like we said. Specifically, how Starship...
So I did want to point out real quick here, some of this could be normal. So they might be spinning it for orientation. They might be spinning it for to propellant settle and do other things with the header tanks and things like that. However, it does seem like a lot of continuing ongoing venting, and I'm not sure yet, so we'll have to listen in. The ice is normal. The ice that you see on the sides, that's normal. This is cryogenic propellant, and but it looks like it might be slowing down. So hopefully this is all just a test. Let's listen in.
Doing the exact same thing on that ship, seeing how the ship handles various flight conditions that we will need it to fly in as we look to one day soon bring ships back to Starbase for catch and reuse. Now, while there are payload simulators on Starship for deployment today, as we will see in a few minutes, the primary data and the primary payload for today is the data. And today, just like with Starship's previous test flights, that data is coming to us courtesy of our Starlink network. In fact, it is from Starlink that you are seeing these wonderful views of ship in space
It looks
right
like spinning
now.
has stopped.
So, and I can't wait to see Starlink really provide those epic views and that data transmission during reentry, which is very, very critical to getting that data during reentry. So, Dan and Jesse, it's been an exciting day so far. There's more to come as we get ready for Starship's first ever payload deploy. What can we expect next here in the next few minutes?
Thanks, Chris. Just going to reiterate, thank you to the Starlink team for these incredible views today. In a few minutes, Starship will deploy 8 Starlink simulators, similar in size to our next generation Starlink satellites. The Starlink simulators will be on the same suborbital trajectory as Starship, meaning they will passively re-enter the atmosphere, just like Starship. With tests like these, we can see how Starship's payload deploy systems work in flight while ensuring that the simulator satellites pose no safety risk to people on Earth or for other satellites in orbit. Now, this also ensures that any parts of these simulator Starlink satellites that do survive reentry splash down harmlessly in the middle of the Indian Ocean.
This looks more stable, everybody.
And then before we get there, though, we're going to have to open up that payload deploy door. So we've only ever done that one time before. Pretty sure it was Flight 3. Someone on the internet, please check me. But that was the only time we ever opened it. And we've had Starlink simulators on the last 2 flights. But we haven't gotten to this moment yet where we're able to open up the payload door and start deploying these. It's going to be pretty cool. We've got them stacked inside of the Starship payload bay, and we'll have potentially a couple of views. You saw one camera pop up. Oh, there we go. Look inside of the payload bay of Starship. You can see them stacked down in the middle of your view. There's kind of 4 on either side, so they're sandwiched on top of each other, a stack of 4 right behind each other. And then we're going to pop the door open. It's on the right side of your screen, so we'll see that open up and then start firing those Starlink simulators out into space.
Real quick, I want to, someone asking why is it slowing down? The reason is it's still increasing in altitude. So remember earlier I talked about raising your altitude. You're slowest at your highest point, you're fastest at your lowest point. So you'll actually see that speed come back up when it gets back down to like 179. But currently it's coming up to its apogee. So the speed is dropping, and then it'll speed back up as it comes back down. It's literally going uphill still. Even though it's in 0G, it's still rising in orbit, so its velocity will slow down ever so slightly, and soon it'll start going back the other way, and the 2 will reverse. That is cool.
Starlink's been really great for Starship, obviously. Getting live video back is really cool, but just the amount of high-speed telemetry, everything we're able to get back is insane. And for a development program, that's kind of everything. We're in excess of 130 or 160. My numbers are fuzzy right now, just like my brain is. But well in excess of 100 megabits per second of downlink. And a lot of that gets eaten up by video. We've got dozens of cameras across Starship. We added several more. For this flight, you saw a couple of those as we have essentially 360 degrees. Oop.
Doors
Open
opening?
the pod bay door, Hal.
Or is that just a light?
we are expecting the payload door to open any moment now. So we're watching out for that. Again, you're looking at the inside of Starship as it's suborbital.
By the way, most of what you're seeing floating around is ice, and the reason it's moving direction is depending on how the vehicle's venting, where it's venting from.
Well, we heard the door open was in progress.
Maybe the door is stuck.
It was unable to actuate all the way open, so they are going to close it back up. Hal told me no. Said, I'm sorry, Dan. Can't do that. Looks like we won't get the door open today. But that's okay.
No.
This is obviously a test we want to be able to do before we're deploying full-on Starlinks. But the real focus for this, now that we are in space, is getting to that reentry. That is the most critical phase of Starship that we still have to prove out.
Dang it. Okay, so no deployment. They still have a relight test coming up. And they
All right, well, so it does look like we're not going to be able to deploy Starlinks today, but we should have pretty frequent views from Starship. They might cut in and out every once in a while, but should be pretty regular. We are in darkness right now, so might be a lot of black, but the cool part is when we get to reentry, it's going to be daytime.
Yes, and we did that on purpose so that we can get some live daytime views as ship is returning back to Earth.
All right, so we are going to take a break. Enjoy these views as we get them. Enjoy the tunes. We'll be back in a couple of minutes when we get ready to relight one of those Raptor engines on orbit. See you soon.
I can't open those the bay doors there. All right, so this is why you guys watch here, so we can comment on a few more things and help answer a few more questions. And first off, like I said, unfortunate the doors aren't opening. That's why they test, but I really would have liked to see that happen today. There's still other tests and other milestones that I hope to see happen today. At least the ship got through the second stage burn. Hallelujah. I mean, oh, if that hadn't happened, I would have been walking out of here very sad. But that's good. Progress, milestones, missions, successes, and some failures like the booster. So it looks like the booster just couldn't hold up. Remember, they had a high angle of attack, so it was coming in very aggressively. Additional heating on the engine bay section this time. All sorts of things. And who knows? They lost it. They lost the booster. No big deal. They expected it. That's why they were pushing it to the known limits and beyond the known limits. So yeah, that's all right. That's all right. So now the next thing that I'm hoping, if they got to have a good, successful Raptor relight test. You will notice, by the way, we were talking about the speed going down and the altitude still going up. They are still shy of orbital velocity by about 1,500 kilometers an hour. So I believe it's 28,000 kilometers an hour basically is the magic number. 17,500 miles an hour is the magic number that it basically takes to be at orbital velocity. That's where you're fast enough where you're the lowest point of your orbit. Right now, the lowest point of the orbit is it's the ground. But if you go faster and faster and faster, eventually it raises the lowest point of your orbit, and your orbit will just always miss the atmosphere, and thereby it won't slow down, and you'll stay in orbit. So it's just shy. And don't forget, when it's running those engines near the end of the burn, it's not very much difference between orbit and suborbit at this point. So they're just barely suborbital, but that's intentional to target practicing re-entering without risking getting a huge, multi-hundred ton payload stuck up in orbit, right? So it's looking good. That's looking very good. So that's, yeah, like I said, that was a big milestone that I'm really, really, really happy to see make it beyond that, because if they hadn't done that today, I would have been, like I said, very, very, very worried. But the good news is, yeah, we're actually moving into the next section. I want to go ahead and answer a few more questions for you guys while we got you here. And again, thank you guys for watching.